Hello, right? In this short screencast, I am going to give you feedback to last week's summary. So let's begin. In the video, we all have implicit biases. Good idea to include the title. Does show Hawkett, very good to include the name of the author. Argues that. That's a very good use of reporting verb. And now we expect the main idea to follow in this sentence. Argues that each person has, I think you probably want to use the plural here. And in general, you would use the plural because he does talk about biases in general, right? So throughout this summary, you're better off using the plural. Plural. Each person has implicit biases that may impact perception. Okay, very good. You try to summarize in your own words. Good. And it takes important role in driving a country forward. Do you mean to say that biases have an important role in driving the country forward? Which country, first of all? And I think this is really not the idea, because biases, he did not say that they will drive the country forward. Remember, biases they're bad things, they're detrimental to society. So we need to address the issue of biases if we want to drive the country forward. That's what he said, right? And you make it sound like biases are a good thing and they have an important role in helping the country. But actually, it's the opposite. Biases are detrimental. They thwart progress. They stop progress in society. So that is a major issue which needs to be addressed, the issue of biases, right? So you wanna clarify that, because I think here this last part makes it sound like exactly the opposite of what he was claiming, right? But other than that, it's a very good first sentence. You have all the components, you made it argumentative, which is very good, but it's slightly misunderstood, I would say. Firstly, he explains three characteristics of implicit biases which are operate. We cannot do that. We cannot do two verbs like that, which are operate. Do you mean to say which are that biases operate? Maybe a that clause. Maybe. A that clause is possible, but because you will have to include three clauses in the sentence, three explanations of the three characteristics, you will probably end up with a very long sentence. So I would suggest, instead of discussing all three characteristics in one sentence, to just split it up into three. So include one sentence for each bias, and that will be a lot more manageable. Because look, you're forced to explain them very briefly. They operate at the subconscious level. Okay, that's clear enough. That's fine. But then look at this phrase. They run contrary to beliefs. That's a little bit too cryptic. It is not enough here. So you need to expand. What do we mean by saying that they run contrary to beliefs? What kind of beliefs? How do they run contrary is just a little bit unclear. And then rapid and automatic mental associations, again, there's just not enough there. So I think your best bet would be to expand on each of these, especially the second and the third. Explain more clearly what these characteristics are, right? And of course, if you do that, you will end up with a very long sentence. So you probably want to just split it into three different sentences, right? So you'll say something like, The speaker discusses three characteristics of implicit biases, full stop. Firstly, biases operate at the subconscious level, full stop. Or semicolon is also okay. Full stop. They run contrary to our stated beliefs, and just expand a little bit, right? And third, they are triggered by rapid and automatic mental associations. Explain a little bit in your own words, and in this way we can see clearly what these characteristics are. Okay. Now here these are fine, but if you decide, and I think you should explain each characteristic, probably if you do first, second, third for the three characteristics, then this secondly is not going to work anymore, so you probably need to change that. You can just say the speaker or Hockett goes on to explain the three reasons why attention should be given to implicit biases. It's a very good sentence actually overall. So you just probably want to change that. But it does work if you use only one sentence for the characteristics and only one sentence for the reasons. But again, that's not recommendable because there's just not enough information here, right? So ultimately you need to, in your revised version of this summary, and for the exam, by the way, you will need to write it better, obviously. So in your revised version, you will need to replace this with another linking word or phrase. A really nice linking phrase would be to use an ing clause. You know ing? Having discussed the three characteristics, the speaker goes on to explain three reasons why blah blah blah. And like I said, this is a good sentence. The first reason, then you go for another first, second, third. First reason is that it, again, plural is better here. Now here, this is the confusion, and it goes back to the to this part of your main idea. You make it sound like biases will help to expand the diagnosis, that biases are predictive and preventive, and that they reduce shame. But he was not saying that. This makes it sound that biases are a good thing and they help people do all these things. But actually what he was saying is, we need to diagnose the problem of biases. We need to become aware of them, right? That's the first thing we need to do. He gives basically three recommendations. The first recommendation is we need to become aware of our own biases. We need to diagnose. Biases are a kind of a disease, and as a disease they need to be diagnosed. So the first thing is diagnose the problem very clearly, understand what these biases are, what they entail, and only then can we start healing ourselves, addressing the problem. Now here you just misheard. He said expand diagnosis, not expend. I would recommend not trying to repeat his words. Just use your own phrasing. Okay? So you can just say that the first recommendation is we need to diagnose the problem of biases. We need to become aware, develop an awareness of our own biases, right? Again, you probably do a full stop much better because these commas make you end up with a run-on sentence. So this is actually a comma splice, which means that the comma cannot combine these clauses the way you've done it here. So, oops, comma splice. You will need either a full stop or a semicolon here, where you've used commas. The second reason Hockett discusses, you can keep repeating the name or the speaker, right? Is that, see, implicit bias is both predictive and preventive. What he was saying was that we need to be predictive and preventive in our approach to biases. Remember, he was saying we need to be able to predict. So I'm imagining, I'm putting myself in a situation. Am I likely to experience a bias in that situation? I need to predict that. And if I find out that I am prone to specific biases, I need to very carefully make sure I avoid a bias when I encounter a specific person or I find myself in a specific situation, right? So we need to be preventive and predictive in our behavior towards biases, right? So again, you need to make that more clear. Okay. And third, again, it reduces shame. He was saying it's not that biases reduce shame. What he was saying was that we need to openly discuss our own biases in a way which reduces shame. So we should not feel ashamed about discussing our biases. We should openly discuss them, and only then can we start fixing the problem. Okay. So once again, I would recommend use your own phrasing, because this is simply repeating the words of the speaker word for word, and that may be counted as plagiarism. So just explain in your own words. His point was we need to openly discuss them without feelings of guilt or shame, something like that. He also emphasizes that the belief is one of the biggest challenges that people have. I'm not very sure what this is. He probably mentioned that, but it's a little out of place here in this summary. I hope you see that. If you've discussed the 3 characteristics, then you've discussed the 3 recommendations, then all of a sudden this is a little bit, it's not very clear how it connects to the other ideas. He probably did mention that, but it does not really add anything to the summary, so you probably don't need that. At least not here, not after you've mentioned the 3 reasons, 3 characters and then 3 reasons. He also emphasized that the belief is one of the biggest challenges of people. I'm not very sure. I'm not sure even what that means. Finally, he uses quotes of psychologists to support the idea that internal change is of paramount importance. Yeah. Remember, we tried to stay away from examples, so you don't need to mention the name of the psychologist. Just go straight to the idea. Finally, Hockett concludes by blah blah blah. So no need to include this. Hockett concludes that by the internal change work. Again, these are his words. I would recommend using your own phrasing. You can just say we need to start from the inside. We need to examine ourselves first. We need to address our own biases first before we can start producing positive change in the world around us, or something like that. So rephrase with your own words this one. Okay, overall I would say, alright, this is a well-structured summary. You do need to expand a little bit here and there, but overall you follow the structure. You have a good introduction. So the structure is there, definitely. I would say work on understanding the lecture itself. You may have to replay it several times to make sure you absolutely know what the ideas are. But overall, I can see improvement in your summaries. Good work. Okay, I hope this helps. Good luck.